By the time we realized Monday was the mistake, 3 of our landing craft were missing and 1 human was drinking coffee beside the wreckage. I am Commander Varesa Kor of the Varkesh Dominion, and before that morning, I had overseen 11 planetary occupations without losing a single command vessel. Fort Bragg was supposed to become number 12. Our analysts called it an aging military installation surrounded by trees, highways, and ordinary American neighborhoods. No orbital cannons, no energy shields, no visible defense grid, just low buildings, parking lots, training fields, and thousands of humans beginning another work week. It looked less like a fortress and more like a place where people complained about traffic. At 6:03 on Monday morning, I gave the order to invade. Our first scout team descended near the main gate beneath a cloak designed to confuse radar. They expected panic. They expected guards with outdated rifles. Instead, they found Major Luke Bennett walking toward a training building with a paper cup in one hand and a gym bag over his shoulder. He was 38, 6 feet tall, and completely unremarkable by our standards. No armor, no visible command insignia, no urgency. When the first plasma burst struck the pavement 20 feet ahead of him, Bennett did not freeze. He set down his coffee. That was the moment I should have canceled the invasion. One of the gate guards had fallen behind a concrete barrier, shaken but conscious. Bennett reached him before our soldiers understood he had moved. He pulled the guard to cover, checked him once, then looked directly toward the trees where our scouts were concealed. Our cloaking systems had fooled 12 worlds. Bennett stared at the exact position of the nearest soldier as if the alien were standing beneath a spotlight. Team 1 reported that the human had detected them. I told them that was impossible. 40 seconds later, Team 1 stopped reporting. There were no dramatic explosions, no desperate broadcast. Their helmet feeds simply showed Bennett moving through the gate area with calm, economical precision, using parked vehicles, barriers, and the morning fog to remain one step ahead. Every time our soldiers tried to surround him, he was somewhere else. Every time they changed formation, he had already predicted it. Then the feed from the team leader tilted toward the sky and went still. Bennett picked up the alien communicator, examined it for 3 seconds, and spoke in a voice so calm that my bridge crew leaned closer to hear him. You landed in the wrong neighborhood. Behind him, alarms began echoing across Fort Bragg. Doors opened. Engines started. Humans emerged from barracks, offices, homes, clinics, and training halls. Some wore uniforms. Some wore workout clothes. One man was still carrying a lunchbox. None of them ran without purpose. None of them waited for instructions twice. The entire base changed shape around our invasion force, not like a frightened population, but like a machine that had been waiting for someone to press the start button. I ordered a second team to secure the gate and recover the first. Bennett glanced at the descending craft, retrieved his coffee from the pavement, and took one final drink. That was when I first understood something our analysts had missed. Fort Bragg was not protected by the people who lived there. Fort Bragg was dangerous because of the people who lived there. The second landing craft touched down 200 yards beyond the gate, and 12 Varkesh soldiers moved out in perfect formation. Their orders were simple: recover the missing scout team, secure Major Luke Bennett, and open a corridor for the main force. They expected resistance near the road. Instead, Bennett walked away from them and entered a collection of narrow streets, concrete buildings, and abandoned vehicles. From orbit, the area looked like a small American town. Our analysts marked it as residential support infrastructure. They were wrong again. It was a training site built to teach humans how to fight inside cities. Every doorway had been placed to create uncertainty. Every alley offered 3 possible approaches. Every window could conceal an observer. Bennett knew all of them. My soldiers knew none. Team leader Rovan followed him into the first building and reported that the human appeared to be retreating. I watched through his helmet camera as Bennett crossed an empty room and disappeared through a rear doorway. Rovan ordered half his unit around the outside, while the others advanced through the structure. It was a textbook containment maneuver on 11 worlds. On Earth, it lasted less than 30 seconds. A steel door closed behind the first group. Emergency shutters dropped over the windows. The lights went dark. No one shouted. That made it worse. Our soldiers activated thermal vision and found 6 human shapes moving beyond the walls. They fired at the signals, only to discover that the heat came from training mannequins. Bennett spoke through the building speaker system. You are following the obvious path. His voice was almost helpful. Rovin ordered the unit to change direction. The next hallway led them into a room filled with movable walls. The walls shifted, quietly separating the soldiers into smaller groups. Human defenders appeared only long enough to disarm them, redirect them, and vanish. No movement was wasted. No one chased an opponent who was already contained. It felt less like a battle and more like a lesson being taught to students who had arrived unprepared. Outside, the soldiers circling the building found Bennett standing in the middle of the street. They raised their weapons. He raised one empty hand and pointed toward the rooftop behind them. Before they could turn, bright training lights activated from 3 directions, overwhelming their sensors. Human voices ordered them to lower their weapons. They obeyed because every exit was covered and every firing angle belonged to Fort Bragg. Rovin finally reached what he believed was the command room. He forced the door open and found Bennett waiting beside a whiteboard. Written across it were the words Monday, Urban Operations, Live Exercise. Rovin looked at the schedule, then at the human. You built this place for war, he said through the translator. Bennett shook his head. We built it for practice. That answer reached my bridge at the exact moment all 12 Varkash signals changed from active to detained. I stared at the map of the base and understood the first layer of our problem. We had not landed among buildings. We had landed inside a classroom, and every human around us already knew the lesson. At 6:19 that morning, I made the kind of decision commanders make when reality refuses to respect the plan. I opened every communication channel across Fort Bragg and gave the humans 20 minutes to surrender. My image appeared on office monitors, training displays, vehicle consoles, and the enormous screens inside their operations center. Lay down your weapons, I announced. Remain where you are, and no further force will be required. I expected fear. I expected arguments. I expected someone with political authority to ask for more time. Instead, Major Luke Bennett stepped into view holding the alien communicator he had taken from our first team. Behind him, humans moved equipment with the calm efficiency of people preparing for bad weather. Bennett looked at the countdown on the screen, then directly at me. You should use those 20 minutes to leave, he said. The transmission ended before I could answer. My officers stared at me. No conquered species had ever dismissed an ultimatum in 9 words. I ordered a full platoon to seize the communications center and bring Bennett to me alive. 36 Varkash soldiers entered the western section of the base beneath portable shields. Their scanners showed only 6 human defenders withdrawing through a maintenance corridor. Captain Sorek called it proof that the humans were finally breaking. I approved his pursuit. Bennett wanted us to believe he was calm, but calm creatures did not retreat. That was my reasoning. It survived for 4 minutes. Sorek followed the defenders into a communications building nearly half a mile from the gate. The main hallway was wide enough for his unit to advance in 2 shielded columns. Doors stood open on both sides. Computer terminals flashed with abandoned messages. A paper cup still released steam beside one keyboard. Everything suggested the humans had left in a hurry. Then the security doors closed behind the last Varkash soldier. The lights remained on. That detail unsettled me more than darkness would have. Sorek ordered his soldiers forward. Human. Signals appeared at the far end of the hallway, fired several harmless training markers against the shields, and withdrew around a corner. The platoon advanced. A second group appeared behind them. Then a third emerged through offices Sorek had already declared empty. The humans never stayed where our weapons expected them to be. They crossed doorways, changed floors, and used stairwells that did not appear on our stolen maps. Every time Sorek turned his platoon toward one threat, another team sealed a section behind him. Within minutes, his single force had become 4 isolated groups. Bennett spoke over the internal system. Captain, your formation is too large for the building. Sorek demanded that he identify himself. Luke Bennett. You are surrounded, Sorek replied. Bennett paused. Check again. The captain looked at his tactical display. Every exit now showed a human position. The portable shields still worked, but there was nowhere useful to point them. Human defenders controlled the staircases, the electrical rooms, and the central network. One group had even rolled a maintenance cart across a hallway, forcing 6 armed Varkash soldiers to stop because the floor beyond it had been coated with a harmless training foam that disabled their magnetic boots. It was humiliatingly simple. Sorek attempted to call for extraction. The request reached me with a new message attached. Bennett had entered our channel. 19 minutes left, he said. Then the signals from the entire platoon changed from advancing to detained. My ultimatum was still counting down, but Fort Bragg was not waiting to surrender. The humans were using my own deadline to measure how quickly they could dismantle the invasion. With 14 minutes remaining on my surrender clock, I stopped trying to capture buildings and ordered my forces toward the residential district. It was not an act of desperation. At least, that was what I told myself. Our doctrine was clear. When soldiers refused to yield, control whatever they valued most. The eastern section of Fort Bragg contained homes, a school, a clinic, and several community buildings. Human families lived there. I believed their presence would finally force Major Luke Bennett to negotiate. Colonel Dresk led 2 transport teams into the district while our aircraft circled above. The streets appeared deserted. Lawns were empty. Cars remained in driveways. A bicycle lay beside a sidewalk as if a child had dropped it moments earlier. Dresk reported that the evacuation was incomplete. I felt my confidence return. Then he entered the first house. The lights were on. Breakfast sat untouched on the table. A television displayed emergency instructions, but there were no humans inside. The second house was empty. So was the third. Bennett had moved hundreds of civilians without creating traffic, panic, or any signal our sensors could follow. Dresk ordered his soldiers to spread out. That was when a patrol spotted movement near a recreation center. One human child stood beside a stalled shuttle cart, frozen between the building and the street. A Varkesh soldier reached him first and raised a restraint device. I expected Bennett to call. Instead, every human radio channel went silent. A moment later, Bennett appeared from behind a delivery truck nearly 80 feet away. He carried no visible weapon. "Step away from the kid," he said. The soldier turned the restraint device toward him. Bennett kept walking. Our aircraft locked onto his position, but targeting warnings suddenly filled their displays. Human signal teams were feeding them dozens of identical heat signatures. Every rooftop appeared occupied. Every window looked dangerous. Dresk ordered Bennett to stop. Bennett did not change pace. The child looked at him and asked whether everything would be all right. "Yes," Bennett answered. He said it with such certainty that even my translator lowered the emotional threat rating. The Varkesh soldier reached for the child. Bennett moved faster than our camera could track clearly. One moment, he was several steps away. The next, the restraint device was on the ground, and the child was behind him. No injury. No wasted motion. Bennett guided the boy toward the recreation center while human defenders appeared along the street. They did not rush forward. They simply occupied every route Dresk might use. A school bus rolled across the northern intersection and blocked our transports. Utility vehicles sealed the southern road. The homes we thought were empty began opening from the rear, releasing military police, medics, mechanics, and off-duty soldiers who had stayed behind to cover the evacuation. Dresk called for air support. His pilots refused to descend because human targeting systems had already painted their aircraft. He called for extraction. The transport crews reported that every safe landing area had become unavailable. Finally, Dresk asked me what he should do. Before I could answer, Bennett took the alien communicator from the ground. "Release your weapons and nobody gets hurt," he said. My colonel looked around at the humans surrounding his force. Some wore uniforms. Others wore medical scrubs, work clothes, or physical training gear. All of them knew where to stand. All of them knew whom to protect. Dresk ordered his soldiers to comply. The child was returned to his mother 3 minutes later. That was when I understood why our strategy had failed. We believed families made the humans vulnerable. In reality, threatening their families had only given every person at Fort Bragg the same mission. With 9 minutes left on my surrender clock, I released the machines we had been saving for serious resistance. 3 Varkesh hunter-walkers descended beyond the southern tree line, each one standing nearly 20 feet tall and carrying enough sensor equipment to track movement through concrete. Behind them came the Ash Guard, 12 soldiers selected from the most successful hunting units in the Dominion. Their commander, Tal Varek, had captured fugitives across 6 planets. He studied the map of Fort Bragg and promised me that Major Luke Bennett would be in custody within 10 minutes. I reminded him that he only had 9. Varek seemed amused. "Then I will bring him back early." The walkers entered the pine forest in a wide formation. Their scanners detected Bennett almost immediately, moving alone between the trees about half a mile from the nearest human position. He was carrying a rifle now, but he made no attempt to hide from the machines. Varric called it arrogance. I called it suspicious. Bennett stopped in a narrow clearing, looked directly toward the lead walker, and raised one hand. Then he turned and ran. The Ashguard followed. That was exactly what he wanted. The forest floor around Fort Bragg was soft with sand, pine needles, and decades of vehicle tracks. The walkers were designed for stone cities and open battlefields. Their heavy feet sank deeper with every step. Bennett stayed just far enough ahead to remain visible, drawing them away from the road and toward an old training range. Varric ordered his soldiers to spread out and surround him. Human heat signatures appeared on both sides of the formation. The walkers turned their sensors toward them and found heated field equipment hanging from trees. More signals appeared behind them. Then above them. The forest seemed full of humans, but every scan produced a different answer. Varric demanded visual confirmation. That was when the first walker lost its forward cameras. A cloud of harmless marking powder covered the lenses, delivered by a training drone no larger than a dinner plate. The second walker rotated to assist and stepped onto a concealed vehicle trench. It did not fall, but one leg became trapped deeply enough to stop its advance. The third fired a warning burst toward Bennett. He dropped behind an earthen barrier built for live exercises, waited for the walker to turn, then climbed onto its rear platform using maintenance rails the designers had never considered vulnerable. Varric saw him reach the emergency control panel. That system is coded, he said. Bennett removed the panel cover and pulled one connector. The walker powered down. Not anymore, Bennett replied over the captured channel. Human teams emerged from concealed positions around the range. They used smoke, bright training lights, and remote vehicles to separate the Ashguard without placing anyone in unnecessary danger. Every path back to the road had already been blocked. Every clear route led deeper into the exercise area. Varric ordered his soldiers to regroup, but the forest returned his command through 6 speakers from 6 different directions. By the time he identified the real signal, Bennett was standing behind him. Your machines are impressive, Bennett said. They're just not built for our woods. Varric slowly placed his weapon on the ground. Across the range, the remaining Ashguard did the same. My bridge received 12 detention signals and 3 reports that human engineers were studying the disabled walkers. Then the machines turned around. Their weapons rose toward the sky, not toward Fort Bragg. Bennett had not merely stopped our strongest ground units. He had added them to the base defenses. 7 minutes remained when I demanded a complete personnel analysis of Fort Bragg. I no longer cared about buildings, weapons, or defensive systems. I wanted to know who these humans were. My intelligence officer searched public records, military archives, employment files, and every transmission our probes could intercept. The first results seemed ordinary. A vehicle mechanic named Raymond Carter. A nurse named Melissa Grant. A warehouse supervisor named Daniel Brooks. A bus driver named Angela Reed. Then the hidden details appeared. Carter had repaired armored vehicles during 3 overseas deployments. Grant had managed emergency care, while her clinic operated without power for 40 hours. Brooks had spent 19 years teaching logistics teams how to keep isolated units supplied. Reed had once served as a military police officer. The list continued. Electricians knew field communications. Construction workers knew defensive engineering. Pilots taught survival courses. Parents had emergency training. Even the civilian staff understood evacuation routes, radio discipline, and how to support a perimeter. Fort Bragg did not contain a small number of warriors surrounded by helpless people. It contained an entire community shaped by service, preparation, and memory. Before I could process that conclusion, Lieutenant Sava requested permission to recover our captured soldiers from a temporary medical station near the center of the base. Her scans showed only a few armed guards. More importantly, human doctors were treating Varkesh prisoners beside their own personnel. Sava believed the humans would hesitate to defend the facility because they feared harming patients. I approved the mission. I was still making decisions based on the weaknesses of normal species. Sava entered through the rear loading area with 18 soldiers and disabled the external alarms. Inside, the halls were bright, organized, and strangely quiet. Human medics moved between rows of patients while generators hummed beneath the floor. One doctor looked up, saw the Varkesh team, and calmly pressed a button under her desk. Sava ordered everyone to step away from the prisoners. The doctor answered, "They are patients until they leave this building." Sava raised her weapon toward the ceiling as a warning. Every light in the hallway went out except the red emergency strips along the floor. Doors closed behind her team. Medical carts rolled across intersections, creating barriers without blocking evacuation routes. Staff members guided patients into protected rooms with the speed of people who had practiced the procedure many times. Then Luke Bennett spoke through Sava's communicator. "You entered a hospital to recover soldiers who are already safe." Sava demanded access to the detention ward. "You have access," Bennett said. "You just do not control the hallway." Human security teams appeared at both ends of the corridor. They did not advance. They did not need to. Sava's soldiers had no clear path forward, no safe route backward, and no target that would not place their own wounded at risk. Sava accused the humans of using prisoners as shields. A Varkesh sergeant inside the ward stood and answered before Bennett could. "They treated us," he said. "They fed us. Lower your weapons." That single statement changed the room. Sava looked through the glass and saw our soldiers resting beneath clean blankets while human medics monitored their condition. No chains, no threats, no humiliation, only care. Bennett entered from a side door with two unarmed medics beside him. "You can stay with your people," he told Sava, "but you follow hospital rules." One by one, her soldiers placed their weapons on the floor. My bridge received 18 more detention signals, followed by a medical report requesting information about Varkesh allergies. That was the moment fear became something more complicated. The humans had defeated every force I sent against them, yet they were protecting the very soldiers who had invaded their home. Strength had made them dangerous. Restraint made them terrifying. 5 minutes remained when I ordered Fort Bragg's power grid disabled. Our orbital systems sent a focused electromagnetic pulse across the installation, and every visible light vanished at once. Buildings went dark. Vehicle engines stopped. Communication towers fell silent. Even the captured hunter walkers lowered their weapons as their borrowed power cells shut down. For the first time that morning, my bridge became hopeful. Humans depended on machines. Every advanced species did. Remove their sensors, their networks, and their command systems, and discipline would eventually collapse into confusion. I authorized General Corvin to begin the final assault. His force descended in 6 armored transports and approached the Central Operations Complex under complete darkness. No alarms greeted them. No human radios appeared on our scanners. No defensive vehicles moved to intercept them. Corvin reported that the base had finally gone blind. I wanted to believe him. His transports crossed the first intersection without resistance. Then the road signs changed. Small reflective arrows appeared beneath their lights, directing the convoy toward the command center. Corvin followed them for nearly half a mile before realizing he had returned to the same intersection. Someone had moved the signs. He ordered his drivers to ignore the roads and cross an open field. The first transport traveled 50 yards before stopping beside a shallow drainage ditch. The ground ahead looked firm, but a human voice came through the vehicle's external speaker. "That field does not support your weight." Corvin recognized Luke Bennett immediately. "Your power is gone," the general replied. "So is your advantage." Bennett answered, "Electricity is not the same thing as preparation." 8 seconds later, Fort Bragg came back to life. Not all at once. That would have been less frightening. Red emergency lights appeared inside. Buildings. Portable generators started beneath reinforced shelters. Battery-powered radios activated on frequencies our jammers had not detected. Civilian trucks turned on their headlights and formed bright barriers across the roads. Then rows of small green markers illuminated the forest, revealing human positions that had been invisible moments earlier. The base had not lost control. It had simply changed systems. Corvin ordered his transports to retreat, but the route behind them was now blocked by construction equipment operated by engineers wearing night vision devices. He turned east and found military police vehicles waiting beside concrete barriers. He turned west and encountered one of our captured walkers, powered by a human field generator and standing directly across the road. Its weapons remained lowered, but the message was clear. Corvin called for air extraction. His landing craft reported that human signal teams had copied their navigation beacons and created dozens of false landing zones. Every open field now appeared safe. None could be trusted. Then Bennett walked into the headlights alone. He carried a flashlight, not a weapon. Corvin stepped from his transport with 4 guards and demanded that the humans restore full power and release the prisoners. Bennett looked toward the dark buildings surrounding them. "The power is already coming back," he said. "Yours is the system that is failing." At that exact moment, my bridge displays flickered. Human code had entered our tactical network through the captured equipment. Maps shifted. Unit labels changed. Every transport showed a different location. Our own systems no longer agreed about where Fort Bragg ended or where our forces stood. Corvin looked down at his useless display, then at the humans positioned around him. His guards lowered their weapons first. The general followed. Bennett spoke into the captured channel so my entire command crew could hear him. "For minutes left, Commander. I had darkened Fort Bragg to make the humans helpless. Instead, I had discovered that they had trained for the moment when every light failed. Darkness was not their weakness. Darkness was another environment they already knew how to use." 3 minutes remained when I accepted that Fort Bragg could not be taken from the ground. I ordered the fleet to prepare an orbital strike. It was the decision every commander hopes never to make, because once a target is destroyed from above, there is nothing left to claim. My weapons officer hesitated. Human civilians were still inside the base. I told him to reduce the yield and focus on the Central Operations Complex. He entered the command. Across our formation, 6 warships rotated toward Earth. Targeting systems locked onto Fort Bragg. The humans below had no shield capable of stopping us. At least, that was what our scans reported. Then Major Luke Bennett appeared on my main display. He was standing beside one of our captured landing craft while human technicians worked around him. "Commander," he said, "you should tell your ships to stop charging their weapons." I asked how he had entered our secure channel. Bennett glanced toward a technician holding an open Varkash control unit. "You brought the connection with you." I ordered the transmission cut. It returned on another channel. Then another. Bennett's voice moved through the fleet faster than my officers could block it. "This is your final warning." I laughed, although nobody on the bridge joined me. "You are standing beneath 6 warships." Bennett looked up at the morning sky. "No, you are sitting above the largest military network on the planet." The first warning appeared on our tactical display. Hundreds of objects were rising from locations across the eastern United States. Some launched from military airfields. Others came from ships at sea. Several had been hidden inside systems our analysts had labeled weather monitoring platforms. Human aircraft climbed beneath us, while ground stations painted our hulls with targeting beams. None fired. They did not need to. Every ship in my formation suddenly understood how many weapons were watching it. My captain ordered the fleet to move to higher orbit. Navigation refused. Human code had entered through the landing craft network and spread into our shared command system. Engines remained available, but every ship received conflicting position data. Moving in formation risked collision. Separating would expose each vessel alone. Then one captured landing craft lifted from Fort Bragg. Bennett was aboard with a small human team. They rose through the atmosphere using our identification signal, passing every automated defense without challenge. By the time my security officer recognized the deception, the craft was already approaching my flagship. I ordered the docking bay sealed. The bay doors opened anyway. Human technicians had copied a maintenance command from one of our prisoners. Bennett entered the ship without firing a shot. My guards reached the corridor outside the bridge and found the gravity controls changing beneath their feet. The humans moved normally. My soldiers did not. Bennett had studied our equipment during the climb. Within minutes, he stood outside my command chamber while every exit displayed the same message: "Remain calm and lower your weapons." I looked at the fleet map. Human aircraft surrounded us below. Human systems controlled our navigation. Human soldiers were inside my flagship. Bennett's voice came through the bridge door. "Commander Corps, the countdown is over." I checked the clock. 0 minutes remained. Fort Bragg had not surrendered. Instead, the humans had brought the battlefield to me. The bridge doors opened at 6:29 in the morning, and Major Luke Bennett entered with 4 human soldiers behind him. None of them rushed. None raised a weapon. They moved with the confidence of people who already controlled every important system on the ship. I stood beside my command chair while officers across the bridge lowered their hands from useless consoles. Bennett looked at the fleet display, then at me. "Order your ships to stand down," he said. There was no anger in his voice. That made the command heavier. I asked what would happen if I refused. He glanced toward Earth, where hundreds of human aircraft and defense platforms held their positions. "Then your crews stay trapped in orbit until somebody less patient arrives." I believed him. I transmitted the surrender order to every Varkash vessel. One by one, their weapon systems powered down. Engines shifted to safe mode. Landing forces across the base received the same message and placed their equipment under human control. The invasion had lasted 26 minutes. My empire had planned it for 9 months. Lieutenant Commander Sirac did not accept the result. He had remained silent near the navigation station, waiting for a moment when I turned toward me. His hand moved toward a concealed control switch linked to the flagship security system. Bennett saw him before I did. He crossed the distance, caught Sirac's wrist, and removed the device with one smooth motion. No struggle, no panic. Sirac stared at him in disbelief. Bennett handed the switch to one of his soldiers. "That was your last bad idea today," he said. Sirac stepped back and lowered his head. Even our final act of resistance had ended before it began. I expected the humans to celebrate. They did not. Bennett ordered medical teams aboard. Human technicians stabilized our damaged systems. Prisoners were counted, identified, and allowed to contact their commanders. The wounded were treated without distinction. Our soldiers had arrived expecting primitive defenders. They found professionals who understood that victory meant controlling what happened after the fighting stopped. I asked Bennett why he had spared us after everything we had done. He considered the question for several seconds. "Because winning and becoming you are not the same thing," he answered. That sentence followed me long after the surrender. By sunrise, every Varkash soldier had been removed from human streets. By noon, our landing craft sat in neat rows under guard. By evening, the first reports reached the Dominion. They did not describe a miraculous weapon or a hidden super soldier. They described drivers who knew evacuation routes, medics who defended patients, mechanics who turned enemy machines around, families who remained calm, and instructors who transformed confusion into order. Luke Bennett was not terrifying because he stood above the people around him. He was terrifying because thousands of humans around him understood the same mission. We thought we had found a soft target on an ordinary morning. We had actually entered a community built by generations who trained, served, returned home, and taught the next person what to do when danger arrived. I had conquered 11 worlds by making their people feel alone. The humans defeated me by proving that none of them were. That was when I finally understood the truth. We had not invaded a place where soldiers happened to live. We had invaded a place where readiness lived in everyone.